There is in the modern world a dichotomy and a tension between civil defence and civil protection. The terms are not always used rigorously. However, civil defence tends to be a rather centralised activity, which is now particularly focused on counter-terrorism and intelligence and all that goes with that, whereas civil protection is more likely to be locally organised, regionally organised, and focused perhaps on natural hazards or on emerging risks or some combination, multi-risks or all risks. There are problems with this, perhaps in, for example, modern Europe. In civil defence, the organisation and the needs and the approach is very different to civil protection. Unfortunately, the terms are often used loosely, interchangeably, but there is a difference between the two systems. Civil defence is so highly centralised that it's definitely different to civil protection, but you can only protect local communities with a decentralised system because the local authority, local area is always the theatre of operations in a major event or disaster. No matter how large the disaster, it is a local affair because that is where people will need to be saved, damage made good and all the rest of it. So there is a tension between the two systems. There is also a powerful lobby post 9/11 for civil defence. It's an academic, military and industrial lobby. Large amounts of money go into counter-terrorism preparedness and technology. And there is a risk that it will usurp civil protection. And I fear that the consequences of that could be a European Hurricane Katrina. And Hurricane Katrina is famous for having been a badly managed disaster where the top-down approach that was applied failed dismally in the field at the local level. So we need to be careful of that. A related issue, very briefly, is that of centrism and devolution. There is a tension between those two factors in most countries. I work and live in Italy, and there is a distinct tension between the management of events from Rome and the management of events at the regional, provincial and local levels. Once again, however, if we don't have a fully organised local civil protection system, then things are not going to work well. For example, in the Kobe earthquake in Japan, somewhere between 70 and 90% of rescues of people trapped after or during the earthquake were carried out by local people before the emergency services ever arrived. So local organisation is absolutely fundamental in disasters, and this needs to be seen in the context of civil defence and civil protection, of centrism and devolution. Thank you.
Maybe what's the first step you would take practically to change the situation?
Well, we need to be careful that we don't overdo the counter-terrorism, the civil defence aspect, and that we don't neglect the funding and the organisation of civil protection with particular reference to harmonising from above but growing from bottom up rather than top down, with implanting the model and letting it grow at the local level wherever.